The survey ship Horizon's Edge moved away from the derelict carrier, towing several data storage units filled with the Indomitable's complete records. On the bridge, the crew worked in unusual silence. Everyone had heard about what the boarding team found. The news was spreading quickly. Daewon sat in his command chair reviewing the preliminary reports. Beside him, Hana was coordinating with the communications team. They would need to send a priority message to the Galactic Council headquarters. Ambassador Tylon approached. He looked different now. Less confident. Less superior? Commander, I've prepared a report for the Council. I thought you might want to review it before I send it. Daewon took the datapad and read through it. Tylon had written a detailed account of everything they found. He included technical specifications, battle records, and most importantly, a clear statement that humanity had saved the entire quadrant 800 years ago. This is good, Daewon said, handing the pad back. Thank you for being thorough. It's the least I can do. Tylon hesitated, then continued. I need to ask you something. When we first found the Indomitable, you and Lieutenant Hana recognized it immediately. You knew what it was. Why didn't you tell us then? Daewon considered the question. Would you have believed me? If I had just told you it was a human warship from before the Council existed, would you have taken it seriously? Tylon thought about it. Probably not. I would have assumed you were mistaken. Or exaggerating, exactly. Sometimes people need to discover the truth themselves. It has more impact that way. Hana looked up from her console. Commander, we're receiving a priority communication from Council headquarters. They want a real-time conference now. Put it through to the conference room, Daewon said. He stood and looked at Tylon. This should be interesting. They gathered in the conference room. The holographic display activated, showing 5 council members. In the center was Council Leader Xanthos, a tall being from the Trelvan species. She had silver skin and large dark eyes. She looked serious. Commander Daewon, Ambassador Tylon, we received your preliminary report. We need to verify what you found. Xanthos spoke in the formal tone used for official council business. Are you claiming that humans fought and won a major war 800 years ago? Before the council existed? Yes, Council Leader. We have complete records from the carrier Indomitable. Battle logs, tactical data, historical records. Everything is verified and authentic. Another council member spoke. He was Krill like Rixon, but much older. These are serious claims. The historical database shows no record of this hive swarm or any major war in that time period. Dr. Mira stepped forward. That's because the hive was completely destroyed. No trace of their civilization survived. The only records that remained were in human databases, and when humanity joined the Council 400 years ago, those records were dismissed as false. Why would they be dismissed? Xanthos asked. Because human technology seemed primitive, Tylon said quietly. Because we assumed that a species with such basic engineering couldn't possibly have fought such a war. We were wrong. The council members looked at each other. Then Xanthos spoke again. We need to examine these records ourselves. Commander, how soon can you return to council headquarters? 2 weeks at standard speed. Daewon replied. Make it 1 week. Use emergency speed authorization. This is too important to delay. The conference ended. The bridge crew began preparing for high-speed travel back to council space. Daewon found June standing near a window looking back at the Indomitable as they moved away. Thinking about your ancestor? Daewon asked. Yes, sir. I keep wondering what it was like for him, being so young and facing something like the hive, being willing to die to protect people he'd never meet. That's what service means, Daewon said. Doing what needs to be done regardless of whether anyone remembers. But they should remember, June said with sudden passion. What he did, what all of them did. They saved billions of lives. They should be honored. They will be now, Daewon said. But remember something, Corporal. Your ancestor didn't do it for honor. He did it because it was right. That's the real lesson of the Indomitable. Over the next week, the journey back to Council headquarters became a strange experience. News of the discovery spread throughout the galaxy. Every ship they passed wanted to know more. Other Council vessels would match course just to ask questions. Human crews on other ships responded with quiet pride. They had always known the truth, but now everyone else was learning it too. Rixon spent most of the journey studying the technical data from the Indomitable. He called Daewon to his lab on the 3rd day. Commander, you need to see this. I've been analyzing the human engineering approach to the hive problem. It's not just creative. It's revolutionary. He displayed schematics on his screen. Look at this armor system. Humans didn't just make it thick. You made it smart. Each layer responds to different threats. The outer layer is designed to shatter, absorbing kinetic impact. The middle layers handle heat and energy. The inner layers are flexible, preventing structural failure. Our engineers worked on that design for years, Daewon said. It shows. And the weapon systems. Modern plasma cannons are considered superior because they're efficient and clean, but your railguns deliver 3 times the kinetic force. They're devastating against any target. And your nuclear missiles? Rickson shook his head in amazement. Simple, reliable, impossible to jam. Absolutely brutal. The hive taught us that fancy doesn't always mean better, Daewon said. I'm writing a paper about this for the Science Council. Human engineering deserves serious study. We've been dismissing practical solutions in favor of elegant ones. That needs to change. When they arrived at Council headquarters, the entire station was waiting. Ships from dozens of civilizations surrounded the horizon's edge. News drones hovered everywhere. This was the biggest story in centuries. The Council convened an emergency session in the Grand Chamber. The entire galaxy was watching through live feeds. Daewon and his team stood before the Council, along with the complete records from the Indomitable. Council leader Xanthos stood at the central podium. We have reviewed the records provided by Commander Daewon's team. We have verified their authenticity. We have consulted with our best historians and scientists. The conclusions are clear and undeniable. She paused, looking around the chamber. 800 years ago, humanity fought and won a war that saved this entire quadrant from destruction. They faced an enemy that had defeated every other civilization. They adapted, they sacrificed, they prevailed. And when it was over, they asked for nothing. Another council member stood. 400 years ago, when humanity petitioned to join the Galactic Council, they were granted only junior membership. Their technology was judged primitive. Their military traditions were considered backwards. Their requests to share historical records were dismissed. Xanthos continued. This was wrong. The Council was wrong. We judged humanity by our own standards, not by their achievements. We benefited from their sacrifice without acknowledging it. This ends now. She looked directly at Daewon. Commander Daewon, Lieutenant Hana, Dr. Mira, Corporal June, all humans serving in Council forces. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize. We should have listened. We should have learned. We should have honored what your people did. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some council members objected. Some agreed. But the majority seemed to support Xanthos. She raised her hand for silence. I am proposing immediate full membership for humanity in the Galactic Council. A permanent seat on the Security Council. Full access to all council resources and technology. And a formal recognition of humanity's role in saving the galaxy. The vote was called. Out of 47 council civilizations, 42 voted in favor. 3 abstained. Only 2 voted against. Humanity was finally recognized as an equal. But Daewon didn't smile or celebrate. He simply nodded and said, Thank you, Council Leader. We accept, with one condition. What condition? Xanthos asked. That we continue to serve as we always have. Professionally, reliably, without special treatment. We don't want recognition for its own sake. We want to keep doing our job. Xanthos smiled slightly. That is exactly why you deserve recognition, Commander. Because you don't demand it. After the session ended, reporters swarmed Daewon and his team. Questions came from every direction. How did it feel? What would change? Were humans angry about how they'd been treated? Daewon answered patiently. We're not angry. We're proud of what our ancestors did. We're honored to finally share their story. But nothing really changes for us. We'll keep serving. Keep standing watch. That's what we do. A reporter asked June how he felt about his ancestor being recognized. The young corporal thought carefully before answering. I'm proud. But my great-great-great-grandfather didn't do it for recognition. He did it because people needed protecting. That's what I try to remember every day. As the crowds finally dispersed, Hana found Daewon standing alone, looking at a holographic display of the Indomitable. How do you really feel? She asked quietly. Relieved, Daewon admitted. Not because we're finally recognized, but because now everyone knows. The story won't be lost. The Indomitable and her crew will be remembered. 3 months after the discovery of the Indomitable, The galaxy was still talking about it. History books were being rewritten. University courses were being redesigned. The story of humanity's stand against the Hive had become the most studied military campaign in galactic history. But for Day One and his crew, life continued much as before. They were back on the horizon's edge, conducting surveys in a new sector. The work was routine, but it was important. Someone had to map the unexplored regions, and they were good at it. Hana entered the bridge with a data pad. "Commander, you have a message from Fleet Admiral Tae-Yang. Priority 1. Daewon raised an eyebrow. Fleet Admiral Tae-Yang was the highest-ranking human in all of Council space. He commanded all human forces serving with the various Council militaries. "Put it through to my ready room." In the private room, Daewon activated the holographic communicator. The image of Fleet Admiral Tae-Yang appeared. He was older, with gray hair and the kind of face that showed he'd seen a lot of combat. His uniform was covered in medals and service ribbons. "Commander Daewon, good work on the Indomitable. You've made quite an impact." "Thank you, sir. We just did our job. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. The Council has officially invited you to address their Security Council. They want to hear more about human military history. They want to understand how we think about warfare and defense." Daewon frowned slightly. "Shouldn't you be the one to address them, sir?" "I will be there. But they specifically asked for you. You found the Indomitable. You're the one who showed them the truth. They trust you. When do they want this meeting?" "Next week. Earth orbit. The Council is coming to us this time." Tae-Yang smiled. "That's the first time the entire Council has met on Earth. It's a significant gesture." After the communication ended, Daewon sat quietly for a moment. Then he called Hana into the ready room and told her about the meeting. "Earth," Hana said thoughtfully. "I haven't been home in 3 years." "Neither have I. It will be good to see it again." 1 week later, the horizon's edge entered Earth's solar system. Daewon stood on the bridge watching his homeworld appear on the display. The blue and white planet with its single gray moon. The sight never got old. Around Earth, hundreds of ships were gathered. Council vessels from every member civilization. Diplomatic ships. News vessels. Everyone wanted to be present for this historic meeting. But as they approached, Daewon noticed something else. Ships he'd never seen before. Large ships painted in dark colors. They had the same design philosophy as the Indomitable. Thick armor. Heavy weapons. Built for war. "What are those?" Hana asked, pointing at the unknown ships. Daewon smiled slightly. "I think we're about to find out." They docked at Earth Station 1, the massive orbital platform that served as humanity's main spaceport. Fleet Admiral Tae-Yang met them at the airlock. With him were several other high-ranking human officers. "Welcome home, Commander, Lieutenant." Tae-Yang gestured toward the observation windows. "I see you noticed our defensive fleet. Those ships weren't in any database I've seen," Daewon said, "because they're classified. Or they were until now. Come. I'll explain at the Security Council meeting." The meeting was held in Earth Station 1's main conference hall. It was a massive room, designed to hold representatives from all 47 Council civilizations. Today, every seat was filled. Council leader Xanthos called the meeting to order. "We are gathered here to discuss galactic defense in light of recent revelations about human military history. Fleet Admiral Tae-Yang has asked to make a presentation." "Admiral, please proceed." Tae-Yang stood at the central podium. Behind him, a holographic display activated. It showed the mysterious ships Daewon had seen. Members of the Council, for the past 800 years, humanity has maintained what we call the Reserve Defense Fleet. These ships are built on the same principles as the Indomitable: physical armor, kinetic weapons, manual control systems, technology that can't be jammed or turned against us. The display showed more ships. Carriers like the Indomitable, battleships with massive railguns, cruisers designed for close combat, fighters built for human pilots. "Why keep these ships secret?" one council member asked. "Because we didn't know if we'd ever need them again," Tae-Yang said. "After the Hive War, we hoped that advanced technology would be enough for any future threat. But we're careful people. We plan for the worst, so we kept building ships the old way, just in case." Another council member, of Vexari, stood up. "How many ships are we talking about?" 412 capital ships, 1,600 support vessels, 3,000 fighters." Tae-Yang let that number sink in. "All fully crewed and ready for deployment. All hidden in systems throughout human space. The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Rickson, who was present as a science advisor, looked stunned. That's a full battle fleet. Multiple battle fleets. Why hide such a force? Because the galaxy didn't take us seriously, Taeyang said bluntly. When we joined the council, we were called primitive. Our tactics were mocked. Our technology was dismissed, so we decided to let people believe what they wanted to believe. We smiled, we nodded. We served in your fleets, and we quietly prepared for the day when someone might need ships like the Indomitable again. Daewon watched the council members' faces. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Some looked impressed. Santhos stood up. Admiral, are you saying that humanity has been militarily superior to the rest of the council for 800 years? No, Taeyang said firmly. We're not superior. We're different. Your civilizations build elegant ships with amazing technology. Plasma weapons, energy shields, automated systems. For most threats, that's perfect. But if something like the Hive ever returns, something that hard counters your technology, then yes, our ships would be more effective. He paused. We're not trying to dominate anyone. We're trying to make sure that if another existential threat appears, the galaxy has options. Multiple types of warfare, multiple strategies. That's how you survive. Ambassador Tylon, who had also been invited to the meeting, stood up. I think I understand. You maintained these ships not as a threat to us, but as insurance for all of us. Exactly, Taeyang said. The Indomitable and her sisters taught us a lesson. Never rely on just one approach. Always have a backup plan. Always be ready for the unexpected. The Council voted to officially recognize the Human Reserve Defense Fleet as a legitimate military force under Council authority. They also voted to study human military tactics and engineering for potential incorporation into Council defense strategies. After the meeting, Daewon found himself standing at an observation window with June and several other crew members. Below them, Earth rotated slowly, beautiful and peaceful. What do you think will happen now? June asked. Things will change, Daewon said. The Council will take us more seriously. We'll have more influence, more responsibility. Is that good? It's necessary. The galaxy faces threats we can't predict. Having multiple approaches to defense makes everyone safer. Hana joined them at the window. The Council wants to tour the reserve fleet. They want to see the ships up close. Good, Daewon said. Let them see. Let them understand what we built and why we built it. Dr. Mira approached with a datapad. Commander, I've been going through more records from the Indomitable. There's something interesting I think you should see. She showed him a personal log from Admiral Byung-ho, recorded several years before the final battle. In it, the Admiral talked about the future, about what might happen after the Hive was defeated. We're winning, the Admiral said in the recording, but at terrible cost. When this is over, I hope humanity can find peace. I hope we can serve something greater than ourselves. But I also hope we never forget how to fight, because peace only lasts when someone is willing to defend it. The Admiral looked directly at the camera. To whoever finds this recording, whether it's in 10 years or 1,000, remember what we learned. Technology is a tool, not a solution. Adaptation beats advancement. Resilience beats elegance. And sometimes the most primitive solution is the most effective one. He smiled slightly. Keep standing watch. Keep adapting. Keep surviving. That's what humans do best. The recording ended. Daewon looked around at his crew. At Hana, who had served beside him for years. At June, who represented the next generation, at Dr. Mira, who understood the importance of remembering history. He was right, Daewon said quietly. The watch continues. It always will. Several weeks later, the Indomitable was towed to Earth. She was placed in orbit above the planet she had died protecting 800 years ago. Engineers began the careful work of restoration. She would become a museum, a memorial, a reminder. On the day the Indomitable arrived, every human ship in the system formed up in formation. Military vessels, civilian transports, personal craft. Thousands of ships all facing the old carrier. At exactly noon Earth time, every ship fired a salute. Bursts of light filled the space around Earth. It was a tradition older than spaceflight. A way to honor fallen warriors. Daewon stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge watching the tribute. Beside him, his crew stood at attention. Even the non-human members joined in, showing respect for what the Indomitable represented. Dr. Mira walked slowly around the command center. She examined the walls, running her scanner over the blast marks and damage. The others watched the hologram replay parts of the battle, but she was looking at something else. "These scars," she said quietly. "The damage patterns on this ship. I've seen similar marks before." Rickson looked up from his equipment. "What do you mean?" "About 600 years ago, the early Galactic Council found a destroyed world ship at the edge of explored space. I read the reports when I was studying xenoarchaeology. The records described massive kinetic damage, ramming. They never figured out what civilization destroyed it." She touched one of the scarred walls. "It was the Hive world ship. This ship destroyed it." Tylon stood up slowly. He still looked shaken. "Are you saying that humans fought this war 800 years ago? Before the Galactic Council even existed?" "Yes," Daewon said simply. "But when humans joined the Council 400 years ago, you were listed as a young civilization, recently spacefaring. You were given junior member status because your technology was considered primitive." Tylon's voice rose slightly. "Your people were treated as students, as children learning from the advanced civilizations." Hana spoke for the first time since the hologram ended. Her voice was calm but had an edge to it. "We know. We were there. But you saved the quadrant." Rickson gestured wildly at the empty space where the hologram had been. "You fought a war that would have destroyed everyone. You sacrificed entire fleets. You lost millions of people. And you never told anyone?" "We tried," Dr. Mira said. "When first contact was made with the Vexari, about 500 years ago, we told them about the Hive War. We showed them records. We explained what happened." "And?" Vexthor asked. "They didn't believe us. They said our records must be false. Propaganda to make ourselves seem important. They said our technology was too primitive for us to have fought such a war." Dr. Mira smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "So we stopped trying to convince people. We just served. Quietly." June couldn't stay quiet anymore. The young corporal stepped forward. "My great-great-great-grandfather served on this ship. His name is on a memorial wall 3 decks above us. His name was Corporal Dongmin. He died when the Indomitable rammed the world ship." He looked at Tylon and Rickson. "Every human in the fleet knows these stories. We teach them to our children. We remember, even if nobody else does." Rickson walked over to one of the terminals. He called up technical specifications for the ship's systems. His fingers moved quickly as he studied the data. After several minutes, he shook his head in what looked like amazement. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "This isn't primitive technology. It's brilliant engineering. Look at this armor design. It's not just thick plates of metal, it's layered. Each layer is designed to defeat a different type of attack. Kinetic, energy, heat, chemical. They thought of everything." He pulled up more data. "And these railguns. By modern standards, they would still be effective. They deliver so much kinetic energy that they would overwhelm most shield systems just through sheer force. The shields would collapse before the projectile even hit." "What about the fighters?" Vexthor asked. "Why build fighters that require manual control?" Rickson found those specifications too. "Because in a jamming environment, automated systems fail, but a trained pilot can still fly, can still fight, can still win." He looked at the human members of the team. "You trained your people to be better than computers." Daewon nodded. "We had to. The Hive could jam anything electronic, so we went back to basics: human eyes, human reflexes, human judgment. But that requires years of training," Rickson said. "Decades to build that level of skill across an entire military force. Most civilizations consider it inefficient." "Most civilizations never faced the Hive," Hana said. Tylon sat down at one of the terminals. He looked tired. "I don't understand. Why serve with us? Why join the Galactic Council at all? You could have remained independent, built your own empire." Daewon walked over to a window. Outside, stars shone through the damaged hull. "Because the galaxy is bigger than human pride. Because after the Hive War we were tired. We had lost so much. We wanted peace." He turned back to face the others. "When the Council offered membership, Even as a junior partner, we accepted. Yes, we were treated as primitives. Yes, we had to follow orders from civilizations who knew nothing about real war, but we did it anyway. Why? Vexthor asked. The Krill security commander seemed genuinely confused. Because peace is worth some disrespect, Daewon said. Because we believed that someday, people would see what we really were. And because if another threat like the Hive ever appeared, he paused. You would need us. And we needed to be there ready. Dr. Mira had moved to another terminal. She was examining records of other battles. The Hive War lasted 70 years. Humanity lost 3 of its 7 colony worlds. More than 2 billion people died. Entire fleets were destroyed. She looked up from the terminal. But humanity won. The Hive swarm was completely eliminated. Every single organism, every ship, every trace of their biology. Humans hunted them down and destroyed them all. Rickson looked uncomfortable. That seems extreme. They gave us no choice, Hana said. The Hive couldn't be negotiated with, couldn't be reasoned with. They existed only to consume. So we made sure they would never threaten anyone again. June was looking at the terminal displays. Can we access the memorial records? I want to find my ancestor's name. Dr. Mira nodded and brought up the memorial database. Thousands of names appeared. Tens of thousands. All the people who died serving on the Indomitable during its 3-month stand at the Varan Nebula. June found his great-great-great-grandfather's name, Corporal Dong Min. Age 23 when he died, security officer, served in close quarters combat when Hive organisms boarded the ship during the final battle. The young corporal reached out and touched the holographic display. His hand passed through his ancestor's name. He was younger than me, June said quietly. Vexthor approached Daewon. The Krill commander looked at the human with new eyes. You serve beside us. You follow orders from species who called you primitive. You never complained, you never explained why. Because explaining doesn't convince people, Daewon said. Actions do. We've served in council fleets for 400 years. We're always professional, always reliable, always there when needed. Eventually people notice. But you could have shown them this ship. These records. At any time you could have proved what humanity did. Daewon smiled slightly. Could we? Or would we have been accused of faking the records? Of building this ship as a prop? Some civilizations believe what they want to believe. Time and patience work better than arguments. Hana checked her equipment. Commander, we should report this discovery to the council. They need to know what we've found. Yes, Daewon agreed. And this time, they'll believe it. Because they've seen it with their own eyes. Rickson was still studying the technical data. This changes everything. Human engineering principles. They're not primitive. They're practical, purpose-built. I need to study this more. I need to understand how you solved these problems. The data is all here, Dr. Mira said. The Indomitable's computers saved everything. Battle reports, engineering logs, tactical analyses, training manuals. It's a complete record of how humanity fought the Hive War. Tylon stood up slowly. He walked over to Daewon. I apologize. When we first found this ship, I called it primitive. I called the people who built it backwards. I was wrong. Daewon accepted the apology with a nod. You weren't wrong to question. You just didn't have all the information. Now you do. The team began preparing to return to their ship. They would download the Indomitable's records and bring them back to the Galactic Council. The truth about humanity's past would finally be revealed to everyone. June took one last look at his ancestor's name on the memorial display. We remembered, he said quietly. We kept the watch. You would be proud. As they left the command center, Vexthor walked beside Daewon. When we get back, things will change. The council will want to apologize. They'll offer humanity full membership, equal status. Maybe, Daewon said. We'll see. You don't sound excited. Recognition is nice, Daewon said, but it's not why we serve. We serve because someone has to stand the watch. That's what the Indomitable taught us. That's what we'll keep teaching the galaxy. The holographic display grew brighter. More images appeared around the boarding team. They showed the interior of the ship when it was still active and full of life. Crew members walked through the corridors. People sat at control stations. Fighters launched from the hangar bays. These are automated recordings, Rickson said, studying his equipment. The ship's computer saved everything. Battle logs, crew records, tactical data, everything. Tylon leaned closer to look at one of the images. It showed a person in a military uniform. The person looked human, but Tylon didn't make the connection. So we can see what species built this ship, he said. That's useful for the database. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed the bridge of the ship. A man sat in the command chair. He was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. His uniform was dark blue with gold markings. Behind him, other crew members worked at their stations. The man began to speak. His words came out in a language that the translation computers immediately recognized and converted. This is Admiral Byung-ho, commanding officer of the Earth Alliance carrier Indomitable. We are beginning our 3rd month holding position at the Varan Nebula. The enemy continues to attack in waves. We continue to hold the line. Daewon felt his heart beat faster. The Indomitable. He knew that name. Every human knew that name. Beside him, June made a small gasping sound. Hana reached out and gripped the young corporal's shoulder, warning him to stay quiet. Dr. Mira watched the hologram with intense focus. Rickson frowned. Earth Alliance? I don't recall any civilization by that name in the Galactic database. That's because it's very old, Dr. Mira said quietly. Before the Galactic Council formed, the hologram continued. Admiral Byung-ho looked directly at them, as if he could see through time. For those who may find this ship in the future, let me explain what happened here. 800 standard years ago, a species we call the hive swarm entered our region of space. They consumed everything in their path, planets, ships, entire civilizations. New images appeared. They showed strange, organic-looking vessels. The ships were covered in what looked like bone and chitin. They moved in massive swarms, hundreds together like insects. The hive swarm adapted to every weapon we used against them, the Admiral's voice continued. Energy weapons? They learned to absorb and redirect the energy within days. Plasma cannons? Their organic armor evolved to resist heat. Missiles with computer guidance? They jammed our systems and turned our own weapons against us. Vex Thor, the Krill security commander, stared at the images. I've never heard of this species. Because they were completely destroyed, Dr. Mira said. Every trace of them was eliminated. The hologram showed battles. Terrible battles. Ships exploded. Planets burned. The hive vessels attacked in overwhelming numbers, covering the screen like a plague. We had to adapt, Admiral Byung-ho said. Our advanced technology was useless, so we went backwards. We built things the old way. Simple, physical, brutal. The images showed human ships being constructed. Ships with thick armor instead of energy shields. Ships with projectile weapons instead of plasma cannons. Ships designed for close combat and ramming. Why would anyone build ships like this? Rickson asked. He sounded confused. This goes against every principle of modern engineering. The hologram answered his question. The hive could phase through energy shields. So we built physical armor, meters of layered alloys that nothing could penetrate. They adapted to energy weapons. So we used kinetic weapons, railguns that fired physical projectiles at incredible speeds, nuclear missiles that delivered raw destructive force. New images appeared. They showed human ships fighting the hive at close range. The railguns fired, and hive vessels simply came apart under the impact. Nuclear explosions consumed entire swarms. They jammed our computer systems, the Admiral continued, so we trained our pilots to fly manually. Visual range combat, old-fashioned dogfighting. We became better pilots than any civilization that relied on automation. A new hologram appeared. This one showed a woman. She was younger than the Admiral, with sharp eyes and a fierce expression. She wore a flight suit with the symbol of Earth on the shoulder. This is Captain Su-min, Admiral Byung-ho's voice said. Commander of my fighter wing. The best pilot I've ever known. The hologram showed Captain Su-min in her cockpit. She flew her fighter through a swarm of hive ships, dodging and weaving. Her weapons fired in short, precise bursts. Every shot hit. Every shot destroyed an enemy. Our tactics seemed primitive to the other civilizations that tried to help us, the Admiral said. They thought we were savages reverting to ancient methods. They didn't understand. We weren't being primitive. We were being practical. Tylon was watching the hologram with a strange expression on his face. He no longer looked smug or superior. He looked uncomfortable. The hologram changed again. Now it showed the Varan Nebula, the same place where they were now. But 800 years ago it had been filled with ships. Human ships on one side, hive ships on the other. The hive outnumbered the humans by at least 50 to 1. We received orders to hold this position for 3 months, Admiral Byung-ho said. Behind us, 7 colony worlds were evacuating. Millions of civilians were being loaded onto transport ships. They needed time, so we gave them time. The hologram showed the battle. It was brutal. The human ships fought with desperate intensity. They fired their railguns until the barrels glowed white-hot. They launched nuclear missiles by the hundreds. When their ammunition ran out, they rammed the enemy ships. One by one, the human ships disappeared from the display, destroyed or too damaged to continue fighting. But they held the line. The hive could not get past them. We held for 3 months and 2 days, the admiral said quietly. Long enough. The colonies were evacuated. The civilians were safe. But we paid a terrible price. The hologram zoomed in on the Indomitable. The carrier was badly damaged. Whole sections were torn open. Most of its weapons were destroyed. But it was still fighting. This is my final log, Admiral Byung-ho said. The Indomitable has taken critical damage. We've lost primary power. Life support is failing. But we still have one option left. The image showed the bridge. Captain Suman was there now, standing beside the admiral. They were having a conversation, but there was no sound. Then Suman saluted. The admiral saluted back. She turned and ran off the bridge. Captain Sumin has volunteered to pilot the Indomitable on one final mission, the admiral said. We're going to ram the Hive World ship, their command vessel. If we can destroy it, the rest of their fleet will lose coordination. Our allies can finish them off, June whispered something. It might have been a prayer. The hologram showed Captain Sumin in the pilot's chair. The massive carrier began to move, slowly at first, then faster. It accelerated toward the largest hive vessel, a massive organic structure that looked like a diseased planet. I'm evacuating in an escape pod, Admiral Byung-ho's voice said. Not by choice. Captain Sumin locked me out of the bridge. She said someone needed to survive to tell the story. So I'm telling it. Remember what happened here. Remember the Indomitable. Remember Earth. The hologram showed the carrier strike the world ship. The impact was tremendous. Both vessels came apart in a massive explosion that consumed dozens of other ships nearby. Then the hologram stopped. The display faded. The room became quiet. Rickson stood completely still. His mouth was open slightly. He looked shocked. Tylon had sat down on the floor. His blue skin looked pale. Vexthor was staring at Daewon and the other humans. His expression had completely changed. That was a human ship, Vexthor said slowly. You're human. This was your people, Daewon nodded. Yes. Why didn't you say something? Daewon looked at the Krill security commander. Would you have believed us if we had just told you? Or did you need to see it for yourselves? Daehyun felt it before anyone else could see it. His expanded consciousness, spread across the entire solar system, detected the approaching void. It wasn't dark exactly. Darkness was something. This was the absence of everything. Matter, energy, information, all of it simply ceasing to exist as the wave passed through. The outer colonies went first. One moment they were there, sending distress signals, trying to evacuate. The next moment they were gone. Not destroyed, gone, as if they had never existed. It's moving faster than we calculated, Taemin said from the control center. His voice was steady, but Daehyun could see his elevated heart rate, his sweating palms. Being distributed across so many sensors had advantages. We have maybe 6 hours before it reaches the inner system. Is the device ready? Subin asked. She was coordinating the evacuation fleets, pulling ships back from the outer regions. Thousands of vessels streaming toward the inner planets, racing against the approaching void. Testing the final connections now, Haewon reported. She was in one of the orbital construction platforms, personally overseeing the last adjustments. Daehyun, how does it feel? It was strange being asked that question when he existed in millions of sensors and processors. But Daehyun understood what she meant. The device is stable. All systems are functioning. I can activate the shield whenever you're ready. Not yet, Subin said. We still have people out there. Civilian transports that won't make it back in time. Dae-hyun could see them, hundreds of ships struggling to reach safety. Some were damaged, limping along on failing engines. Others were overloaded with refugees from the outer colonies. They were all going to be too slow. "I can help," he said. He had never tried using his new abilities this way. But the device was designed to manipulate quantum fields. If he could create a shield against the silence, maybe he could help the ships move faster. He focused on the nearest transport, a civilian hauler carrying 500 people. He could feel the ship's mass, its velocity, the quantum fields around it. Very carefully, he began to adjust those fields, creating a bubble of altered spacetime around the vessel. The ship suddenly accelerated, shooting forward at speeds that should have been impossible for a vessel of its class. What just happened? The transport captain's confused voice came over the radio. "Did our engines just triple their output?" "Something like that," Dae-hyun replied. "Don't question it. Just get to safety." He repeated the process for every ship he could reach. It was exhausting in a way his distributed consciousness hadn't experienced before. But it worked. The evacuation fleet raced toward the inner system, pushed along by invisible hands. The silence kept coming. Ji-woo watched from the control center, tracking both the approaching void and the fleeing ships. Her hands shook as she worked. She had spent months preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, the reality was terrifying. "The last transport just entered the shield perimeter," she announced. "Everyone is inside," Dae-hyun, Subin said quietly. "It's time." Dae-hyun took a moment to observe what he was protecting. Billions of people going about their lives, unaware of how close they had come to total extinction. Children playing in parks, scientists working in laboratories, farmers tending crops, artists creating beauty, all of humanity's complexity and chaos and wonder. "Activating Project Haven," he said. The device came to life. The massive ring structure began to glow with blue-white light as quantum processors engaged. Dae-hyun felt power flowing through him, through all the parts of him spread across the system. He directed that power, shaping it into a shield according to the builder's ancient design. The shield spread out from the device like a soap bubble expanding. It was invisible to normal sight, but Dae-hyun could feel it. A barrier that masked humanity's technological signature, making them invisible to the silence's detection mechanisms. The shield reached full extension just as the silence arrived. It was like watching a tsunami hit a seawall. The wave of nothing crashed against the shield, trying to penetrate, trying to erase everything behind it. Dae-hyun felt the pressure, enormous and relentless. The silence didn't understand the shield. It couldn't process the existence of something that should be visible but wasn't. The strain was incredible. Maintaining the shield required constant calculation and adjustment. Dae-hyun had to keep every part of the device working in perfect harmony, processing data faster than any human mind should be able to think. But he held. The shield held. The silence washed over them like water flowing around a rock. It couldn't see them, couldn't find them. From the silence's perspective, this region of space was empty, devoid of the technological signatures that would mark it for erasure. Hours passed. The silence continued its sweep, moving on toward other parts of the galaxy. Gradually, the pressure on the shield lessened as the wave passed beyond them. In the control center, people hardly dared to breathe. They watched the sensors tracking the silence's movement, waiting to see if the shield would fail, waiting to see if they would all suddenly cease to exist, but they didn't. The shield held strong. Finally, after what felt like forever, the silence passed beyond detection range. The immediate threat was over. A cheer erupted in the control center. People hugged each other, crying with relief. They had survived. Humanity had survived. Ji-woo wiped tears from her eyes and spoke into the communication system. "Dae-hyun? Are you there?" For a long moment, there was no response. Then his voice came through, changed somehow. More distant, but also more present, as if he was speaking from everywhere at once. "I'm here," he said. "Different, but here. The shield is stable. You're safe now." "You did it," Ji-woo said. "You saved us all." "We did it," Dae-hyun corrected. "Every person who worked on this project, every leader who chose cooperation over conflict. This wasn't one person's victory. It was humanity's." Subin pulled up damage reports. The outer colonies were gone, along with anyone who hadn't evacuated in time. The cost had been high, but the core systems where most of humanity lived had survived intact. What happens now? Haiwan asked. Can you maintain the shield indefinitely? Yes, Daehyun replied. The device draws power from quantum fluctuations. As long as the universe exists, it can run. I'll be here, watching over everything, making sure the shield never fails. That sounds lonely, Jiwoo said quietly. It's not, Daehyun said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. I can sense everything now. Every person in human space. I can feel your joy, your fear, your hope. I'm part of all of you now. How could I be lonely? In the months that followed, humanity rebuilt. The loss of the outer colonies hurt, but they adapted. New settlements were established within the shield's protection. Old rivalries between nations and corporations faded, replaced by a new sense of unity born from shared survival. Ji-woo founded an organization dedicated to studying the remaining alien vaults. She called it the Builder Initiative, and its mission was to learn everything possible about the ancient civilization and search for other species that might have survived the silence. Tae-min worked on ways to expand the shield's coverage. If they could extend it further, they might be able to reclaim some of the lost colonies or explore new regions of space. Haewon used her corporate influence to ensure Project Haven remained a priority. The device needed constant maintenance and upgrades, and she made sure it received all the resources it needed. Subin reorganized humanity's defenses around the new reality. They couldn't fight the silence, but they could prepare for other threats. The galaxy was vast, and they had learned they weren't alone in it, and Daehyun watched over it all. His consciousness, distributed across the entire system, became a guardian presence. He helped coordinate relief efforts after natural disasters. He adjusted power distribution during energy shortages. He warned ships away from dangerous asteroid fields. He became, in a very real sense, humanity's guardian angel. Sometimes late at night, Jiwoo would sit in her office and talk to him. Not through official channels, but through a private connection they had established. They would discuss philosophy, science, memories of the old days when they were just fugitives trying to save the world. Do you ever regret it? She asked one night. Giving up being human? Daehyun was quiet for a moment. Sometimes I miss small things. The taste of coffee, the feeling of walking on solid ground. But then I remember what I have now. I can sense every sunrise on every planet. I can feel the joy of every child learning to read. I can witness every act of kindness, every moment of love. I didn't stop being human, Jiwoo. I just became something more. The builders would be proud, she said. We passed their test. No, Daehyun replied. We didn't just pass their test. We proved something they never expected. They chose ascension, leaving physical reality behind. But we found a different way. We chose to stay, to protect what we built, to remain connected to the world we came from. That's the human way. We don't run from challenges. We face them, we adapt. We survive. 5 years passed, then 10. Then 50. Jiwoo was old now, her hair white, her movements slow. But her mind was as sharp as ever. The Builder Initiative had discovered 17 more vaults and translated hundreds of artifacts. Each one taught them more about the ancient civilization and the universe they inhabited.